Here are this week's Pool Together community podcast highlights. How many people at MIT actually go to MIT?
You can sneak into most universities. If you're looking for the learnings and the community and not the degree, the whole world opens up for you. And Stanford, MIT, tens of thousands of incredibly smart, innovative people who are just like hanging out. And even if it's just going to the bar in Kendall Square, you're going to meet like random, really sharp people that are going to be interesting to talk to. So those are like intellectual hubs. And in particular, MIT had something called the Enterprise Forum, which I don't know the name of it anymore, but I was a member of the Innovation Council for the MIT Enterprise Forum, and we were hosting these Ethereum events. And we're in that era, we're explaining what is a smart contract? Like, oh, why is a smart contract interesting? So yeah, if you want to meet smart people, go to where smart people hang out. That's the key thing.
Hats Protocol is Onchain, right? You're transferring hats. You're creating this tree of roles and permissions. But then you mentioned AI. So I'm wondering like how AI and why Onchain?
Onchain gets us capture resistance. That's the main answer there. AI, I think it's kind of still a long roadmap to really deeply integrate AI with DAOs and with Ethereum broadly or the EVM. I think it's interesting, but it's just technically, I don't think it's all the way there. I'll talk a little bit about heterarchy as a core concept to how I think an AI-powered manager, or kind of like you could think of it as like an AI CEO, right? Could work. Heterarchy is this concept of a set of dynamic hierarchies that are each constructed for a particular purpose and can also kind of like melt down when they're no longer needed. And where I think an AI can work here, or an automated or algorithmic management of an organization, is to construct those dynamic hierarchies of specific roles and give them to the right people, and then remove them from those people when they're no longer needed. But that's kind of the long-term 5-10 year vision that I think Hats really plugs into.
And so one thing that's come up, especially with Pool Together, is like this liability issue with governance tokens and holders. But how do we do that maybe without tokens, or how do we do it in a more efficient way rather than like on-chain votes and that sort of thing? So I'm wondering, as Hats Protocol, are you seeing other ways that aren't token-based that we can do this thing and get the DAO working, producing, being that mycelium network, the heterarchy that you're talking about?
Yeah, nice. There's kind of two parts of a DAO. There's the top level governance surface, which we decentralized. Historically, we use a token for that. And then there's kind of like the operational structure and the delegation of power to people to get things done. And Hats is really focused on the latter, right? So where I'm focused on Hats is like being able to give someone a leadership position and give those people the kind of access rights and permissions that they need in order to like do great work on behalf of the DAO. I think your question is really pointing at the first category, which is like, okay, well, if the SEC is creating fear that certain token models are inaccessible or potentially legally risky, then what other approaches can we take? How can we innovate to new forms of top level governance? And I think Nouns is interesting in this direction. I still think Moloch DAO is like extremely underrated. More people should be using Moloch DAOs and non-transferable tokens to represent voting power. But other than that, I would say there's a KYC angle, which kind of sucks. It's really disappointing because I think if we had more regulatory clarity, it would actually help us create innovation faster. That's something that I thought the US really always prided itself on.
But I was thinking the Hats Protocol could be in that first space of DAO governance, specifically because of Nouns, right? They have like over 50% of Nouns holders have never voted or something like that. And what I'm seeing with governance is it's all about delegation, right? Those token holders aren't necessarily, they don't have time to vote. Voting's a lot.
I think you've got it. I would say like most shareholders in companies that are on the S&P 500 probably don't vote, right? I think that generally speaking, people who buy a noun are buying the noun because it's an investment. For them, it's a piece of art that's going to increase in value over time. And to expect them to participate in the DAO is probably not the right approach always. One of the main things I think is missing from the space, and I know PushDAO is working on this, is just push notifications across the whole ecosystem. There's not really an easy way for me to get push notifications. Is really problematic.
Yeah, Web3 messaging and Web3 notifications are super needed. And I'm really focused on growth and, yield sources and wallets and swapping into smart contracts without the need for liquidity and that sort of thing.
Let's make it a little bit more tangible for PoolTogether. I happened to discover a recent proposal that y'all had about basically like funding the community team of 3 people to get work done. And usually there's some accountability, whether that's in the proposal or in the bylaws. But this is still text that is going into an on-chain proposal. It's not like an actual on-chain set of responsibilities. So one of the things that we're really excited for with Hats is that Tijark and Under the Sea and Launcer could each have a hat that represents their role as a member of the community team. And they could have specific power associated with that hat token. And the hat token itself would be connected to multi-sig signing authority, Discord roles, ability to send out certain announcements in Discord or certain announcements via social channels. These are all things that are going to be connected on-chain and off-chain authorities to a given hat.
So that's right. Anybody can go to app.hatsprotocol.xyz and set up your own tree and see how it works. Thanks for listening. You can download the full episode of this week's Pool Together Community Podcast on your favorite podcast app.